Good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat, and we've got a lot to get to this morning. A lot happened over the weekend. I've got to tell you about the bipartisan deal. I'm not crazy about the deal, but it is somewhat of a Republican win. Not really. We're going to dig into it. It's a bipartisan deal. 8 Democrats, Senate Democrats, voted for it, or voted to end the shutdown. And we're going to talk about parts of the deal. This is the Schumer shutdown. It looks like it's going to be over. It is headed to the House because there were changes to the continuing resolution in order to open up the government. They had to vote on that. The Senate, they voted on it, but they changed it. So now it goes back to the House to approve those changes. So heads to the House for a vote. We're going to dig into it. Is it truly a win for Republicans? We'll talk about it. I also want to talk about Sean Duffy. He totally wrecked Katie Porter. If you guys have been following this show, we've talked a lot about Katie Porter. She's one of the most angry politicians I've ever seen, angry people I've ever really had. I've never met her, but the clips of her in interviews, of her, talking to her staff, the police reports, the reports about Katie Porter, it all suggests to me that she's an angry person. So Sean Duffy, he completely wrecked her with a beautiful response to her attack over the air travel nonsense. So she launched an attack in this air travel thing. It's not nonsense. It's a way of preventing like the air traffic controllers. There's not enough. Do you want safety or a reduction in flights? We've got to do a reduction in flights in order to keep the people safe. That's what Sean Duffy decided to do as transportation secretary. So we're going to get to that. Plus, we're going to get to Gavin Newsom urging Illinois to rig the election. No, he said that Illinois needs to redraw its maps. Therefore, that would be rigging the election if we were to redraw our maps. And I don't know. I think Pritzker might just listen. I think that this is still a possibility, Illinois redrawing their maps. It's so fascinating. I said that Darren LaHood should have entered the gubernatorial race. There was whispers that he was going to. And I said, he might as well just, take his chances, run for governor, and if he loses, he loses, because he's probably not going to have a job in Congress very much longer because they keep gerrymandering the hell out of this map. They're going to write him out of his district. And there's been maps that I've seen, and now I don't know if these are like legitimate maps. It's being passed around Republican circles, this map. And what it does, it leaves one Republican district left. So I don't know. Pritzker might just listen to Governor Gavin Newsom and redraw our map. Only time will tell. So let's get to the bipartisan deal. 8 Democrats voting for it. So it was a long vote last night, Sunday night until late Sunday night. It was very long. There was a senator who was absent, John Cornyn. And he was absent from D.C., which made it even longer because you had to try to get the 8 Senate Democrats. And a new funding bill has passed the U.S. Senate, and it heads to the U.S. House of Representatives. That's where we're at now because they made changes to it. The deal got support from 8 Democrats, and it's part of a package, to reopen the government, fund SNAP again, and it begins the appropriation process. People are saying, like this judge, a lower court, the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, Trump, you don't have to fund SNAP. A lower court said you have to fund SNAP. It's been kind of confusing. I've always taken the position that Donald Trump shouldn't fund any program. And Donald Trump kind of messed up a little bit, and I'll, call balls and strikes. He messed up a little bit by funding things like the WIC program, some veterans programs. Now they did like some funny things with the money. It wasn't like nearly to the tune of what funding SNAP would look like, even partially fully funding SNAP. I think it's $110 billion. Partially funding SNAP would be insane. as well. So the Supreme Court said, no, you don't have to. Those lower courts said you had to. I think it's bizarre. The blurring of the lines here. Congress, they are in charge of the appropriations process. We send our elected representatives to go there, craft legislation, craft a funding bill, and then they have to vote on how to spend the taxpayers' money. It's called taxation with representation. But when you get the executive branch in there funding things without congressional support, and then when you have the judicial branch mandating the executive branch, like it's all blurry at this point. And whatever happened to separation of powers? Him not funding SNAP, Donald Trump not funding SNAP after this lower court had said you had to, was just him not being a tyrant, okay, and respecting the separation of powers, which I think is so funny. They call Donald Trump a tyrant or a king or whatever, because he's actually respecting the separation of powers by not funding SNAP anyway. So what this deal does, this package, reopens the government if the House votes yes. It funds SNAP, begins the appropriations process. And what it does, it secures a vote for extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies, the ACA subsidies. So I was worried that they were just going to fold, the Republicans, and you were worried that they were just going to include the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which tax credits is what I call them, the Affordable Care Act tax credits. This is why your tissue box at the hospital is $15, whereas you would buy it in the store for $5. I don't know how much tissues are. I don't buy them. I use paper towels because I'm not a snowflake. I don't need something soft to blow my nose in. No. So the tissue boxes, they're $15, and they're $15 at the hospital because the insurance companies, they know that the insurance companies, they're, provided these tax credits, and people are provided these tax credits, and that's what balloons the cost of healthcare by dumping a bunch of money into the system. So they can justify, oh, well, you've got all these ACA tax credits. Well, now we're going to charge you $15 for the tissues because we know you have it. Okay, so that is what causes healthcare to balloon, the cost of healthcare to balloon. Tylenol, same thing. Think of it this way: the Inflation Reduction Act, and I bring up this all the time. It's a great way, or it's a great example. Under Joe Biden, in the Inflation Reduction Act, there were pretty much like tax credits you could apply, or like tax credits you could apply to an electric vehicle. So Americans were getting, I think it was like $4,000 a pop. Like they could get $4,000 and apply it towards an electric vehicle. So what does Ford do? They raise their cost of the electric vehicle by like $5,000, $6,000, something like that, because they know the American people have all of this government money in their pocket, and then they're going to raise the cost of it because they know that they can. You get what I mean? So that's why the Affordable Care Act tax credits, the subsidies suck, because they balloon healthcare costs. Okay, so what is in the deal? Like I said, I was worried that they were going to pass those without bringing it to a vote. From what I understand, and I did some digging this morning, it's actually going to go to a vote and the filibuster remains intact. So there was whispers, private conversations happening in DC with Democrats, and they were trying to eliminate the filibuster for this ACA subsidy vote. And that would be bad because they need, X amount of Republicans to vote for it. And removing the filibuster would cause them not to have to get, Republican votes for it, or a simple majority, okay, or 2/3 majority, I think is what it is, the filibuster. So they were talking about removing the filibuster because they know that they can't get Republicans to vote for it. So I don't know. I think that the Affordable Care Act is good as dead. Even if House Speaker Johnson calls it up for a vote, because it's totally up to him to call it up for a vote in the House, and most likely he won't. So I think it's dead. So what's in the deal in exchange for their support of a bill to reopen the federal government? 7 Democrats were promised a future vote. Did I say 7? I think it was 8. 7 or 8. 7 Democrats were promised a future vote on continued government subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. Those subsidies have been at the heart of the Democrats' overall objection to a clean continuing resolution. I mean, they wanted the illegal health care for immigrants. They want this. They held this up for way too long. But that was kind of at the heart of their objection to the continuing resolution. This was a clean continuing resolution bill, and it passed the House, but it was stuck in the Senate since September. So it's already November. So it's been stuck in the Senate for a long time. Now, as part of the deal, this is where I don't think the Republicans got as much as a win as they're saying they got. The deal here includes reversing mass firings from the federal government that were central, really, to the Trump administration's stated goals of shrinking the federal government. And this was spearheaded. He's kind of like the Heritage Foundation guy, Project 2025 guy, right? The Office of Management Budget, something like that. Russ Vought. Okay, so he's the director there, and he spearheaded these mass firings, federal government firings. Now, the new plan would retroactively eliminate those mass firings. So there were some firings that took place. And what this new plan does, it retroactively eliminates those mass firings. And the plan also pushes a minibus, not an omnibus, but a minibus of appropriations to the agriculture FDA, which is kind of annoying. I know you're like, oh, agriculture, that's money going to farmers. Kind of annoying. The agriculture department, they largely, I mean, it's become like a food stamp thing, okay, and government handout thing. It's not really for like farmers. Okay, so I'm not too ecstatic about these appropriations, these extra appropriations. And then there were some appropriations to the legislative branch, like Capitol Police and stuff like that. And then there was military VA appropriations extra. So I'm not ecstatic about that because like we're spending way too much money already. But whatever. I'm not ecstatic about the federal firings being reversed. So yeah, the key, but I get it. In order to pass this clean continuing resolution, open up the government. Now, because this bill is different and it includes the extra appropriations, that is why it has to go to the House again and be approved on. So multiple Democrats in the House have said that they're not going to vote for it. And if Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, it might wind up being a Hakeem shutdown, okay, rather than a Schumer shutdown. If he can unite his caucus in opposition, that would make passage harder for Speaker Mike Johnson. Okay, so which Democrats voted for the deal? You've got Dick Durbin of Illinois, which I found interesting. Most likely, I don't know. I think that he's a big pharma guy, and FDA gets some extra money in this. So that might have been why what pushed him over on this deal. If he's funding big pharma, he's like happy as a clam, and he's kind of out of there anyway. He's not running for re-election. So he wants to make his big pharma lobbyist happy before he leaves, maybe to secure a position. I don't know if he's going to, retire, or, secure some sort of position on a big pharma lobbyist board. It's typically where politicians go after they leave office. They serve on some board somewhere. So it could have been something like that. I'm speculating, of course. I have no idea what urged or caused Dick Durbin to vote the way he did. I'm speculating as to reasons why he might have voted the way he did and voted on this deal. Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, Angus King of Maine, technically an independent, but caucuses with the Democrats, which is interesting. Angus King of Maine. You have Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Tim Kaine of Virginia, Jeannie Shaheen of New Hampshire, then of course John Fetterman, and Jackie Rosen of Nevada. So those are the Democrats. 8 of them joined the majority of Republicans for a final 60. You needed 60 with the filibuster. So several senators were opposed to the bill. Bernie Sanders going as far as to say it was a tragedy that this bill was going to be voted on. So take a listen to good old Bernie Sanders.
Because I think it is important that the American people fully understand what is being voted on today. Everybody in America knows that our current healthcare system is broken. It is dysfunctional. It is cruel. It is by far the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and the only healthcare system of any major country that does not guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right, covering every man, woman, and child. We are unique in that respect. And yet tonight, what this Senate is about to do is make a horrific situation even worse. So let's be clear what this vote is about. If this vote succeeds, over 20 million Americans are going to see at least a doubling in their premiums in the Affordable Care Act. In my state of Vermont and throughout this country, for certain groups of people, it will be a tripling and a quadrupling of their premiums. There are people who will now be paying 50% of their limited incomes for health care. Does anybody in the world think that makes sense? And if this resolution is passed tonight, we are on a pathway to throw 15 million Americans off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. 15 million. Our job is to create universal health care, guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child, not throw 15 million people off the health care they have, low income and working class people. And my friends, know what you are voting on. Studies are out there that when you throw 15 million people off of health care, some 50,000 of our fellow Americans will die unnecessarily every single year. Anyone think that's funny? Something to laugh at? Something to just go past? I don't. 50,000 Americans die unnecessarily. Now, I know as part of this resolution that the majority leader is going to say, well, Democrats can put together their own bill and it'll come to the floor here in the Senate for a vote. As everybody here knows, that is a totally meaningless gesture. You can get 100 votes here in the Senate. Won't mean anything because the House is not going to take it up, and the President of the United States certainly will not sign it. So, Mr. President, I hope that anybody here who is thinking of voting for this reconsiders, goes back home and talks to their constituents and asks them what it will mean if their health care premiums are doubled or tripled. Thank you, Mr. President.
Democratic leader.
Okay. So that's Bernie Sanders losing his marbles up there. I can't take anything this guy says seriously. He has 3 houses worth millions of dollars, and he lectures you and I about taxing the rich and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so let's talk about ACA for a quick second, and then I'll get to some other Democrats who threw hissy fits as well. So have you ever noticed every time the government promises to make healthcare more affordable, your premiums magically go up? Every single time something passes, oh, this is an Affordable Health Care Act, or the Affordable Care Act, which is so ironically named, it makes me chuckle. It makes jumbo shrimp sound serious. Okay, it's like an oxymoron. It's so ironically named. Here's how the racket works. The government gives taxpayer-funded subsidies, and they call them premium tax credits, to help people buy health insurance on the Obamacare exchange. Okay, so you don't even really get options. You have to buy it on the Obamacare exchange. So there's a set list of healthcare providers you get to choose from and get to buy from. Okay, so the government gives you taxpayer-funded subsidies, money, gives people money, taxpayer money, to go buy Obamacare health insurance, Obamacare health insurance, and it's from a set list. Now that sounds noble, right? Oh, the taxpayers are chipping in for the less fortunate, yada, 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 helping families afford coverage. But here's the catch. The more Washington pays in subsidies, the less incentive insurers have to keep prices down. So they didn't keep raising costs. Think about it. If Uncle Sam is footing the bill, why would Blue Cross or, I don't know, United Healthcare, why would they lower their premiums? If Uncle Sam is just going to keep, picking up the bill and footing the bill, they're just going to keep raising prices, knowing that the government is going to cover the difference. It's like giving your kid your credit card and telling them to go shop responsibly. Spoiler, they won't. Okay. So over time, those subsidies have ballooned the cost of healthcare, not because more people are getting care, which I don't know, more people might be getting care, but it's really because the cost of everything in healthcare has exploded. Okay, over time, those subsidies have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the subsidies get bigger and bigger, there's no true incentive for Blue Cross to bring down healthcare costs, or for the hospitals to bring down healthcare costs. So hospitals charge more, drug companies charge more, insurers mark up their plans, and the government just keeps writing bigger checks. Okay, so now ACA subsidies are like gas pedal stuck on the floor. The more Washington spends, the faster prices climb. That's how you should look at ACA. And this is bureaucratic insanity. We've created a system where the government rewards high prices and punishes efficiency. The moment someone tries to bring those costs down through a free market competition, okay, that's how we got to do this thing, is free market competition. Pull all the subsidies out completely, which is where I think it should be. The moment somebody tries to say, hey, let's get subsidies out completely and do free market competition, that's usually how, costs, because they're competing with each other. All of a sudden, you're anti-human, or you're racist, or you're anti-equity, or you're anti-people getting healthcare. So here's what's happening. The ACA tax credits are masking the true cost of insurance. People think their plans are affordable, but only because taxpayers are covering the difference. That means two things. You're still paying, okay, just through taxes instead of premiums, by the way. So on the outside, it kind of feels like the ACA tax credits are helping you, or that it's bringing down your cost of insurance, but you're still paying. See, that's what these people don't realize. Even if you are on the ACA tax credit thing, you're still paying through your taxes. It's just instead of your premiums. And then the system becomes addicted to those subsidies. And the second those credits shrink or expire, millions can't afford coverage at all. So They are putting duct tape over your check engine light and calling it fixed. That's what the ACA, really what's going to fix it is the free market. So yeah, politicians, they love it. It's, gift to big pharma, these pharmaceutical companies. It's a gift to these insurance companies. They love it. So Democrats, they, like Bernie Sanders, they cited the non-extension of ACA subsidies was why they didn't vote for the bill. Okay, they cited the fact that the extension of ACA subsidies was not guaranteed in the bill, and that's why they didn't vote for it. So the deal does offer, though, a future vote on this. So I think that they're going to be dead. House Speaker Mike Johnson, I don't think that he has to even call it for a vote. He has repeatedly promised that such a vote would not come before the House on his watch. Let's hope that he sticks to his guns here and does not bring it to a vote. Other Democrats blasted the deal. Outside of Bernie Sanders, you had Malcolm Kenyatta. He's the vice chair of the Democratic Party. He posted on social media and he said, any deal that ends with Democrats just getting a pinky promise in return is a mistake. I mean, he's not wrong. It is kind of like a pinky promise, because I don't think that Speaker House Johnson is forced in any kind of way to bring this to a deal or to bring this to a vote, the ACA tax credits. He goes on in a statement. He says, the American people are suffering because Republicans refused to stop healthcare costs from skyrocketing. See, they just flipped the script. They say that Republicans saying that they don't want more subsidy, but we've been doing the subsidies after subsidies after subsidies for such a long time. Clearly, that's what's skyrocketing the cost. It's basic economics. An agreement that doesn't fix that reality, the skyrocketing health costs, falls massively short. Okay, now I do want to share this. This is Congressman Greg Cesar, I think is how you say his name. He was crying about it as well. He says, a deal that doesn't reduce healthcare costs is a betrayal of millions of Americans counting on Democrats to fight for them. Republicans want healthcare cuts. Accepting anything but a pinky promise from Republicans isn't a compromise. So, yeah, that's another Democrat that was crying and complaining about the deal. There was another guy. His name is Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. He was on X. I pulled some of these today. Democrats must stop playing by the old rules in a broken Congress. Mallory McMorrow, a Senate candidate in Michigan, said Americans can't afford this deal. Man. Now that the deal is done and the plan has passed, it heads to the House to a vote. Like I said, because they made those changes. They're doing extra appropriations for agriculture, the VA. They included things like mass firing, or the elimination or the reversal of the mass firings, which is kind of annoying and not so a Republican win. This is definitely a compromise. It's not great for Democrats, but it's not good for Republicans, or it's not great for Republicans either, because we got rid of the mass firings and we're also spending more money on agriculture FDA. I don't know. Dick Durbin voted for it. I'm thinking that the reason why he voted for it was because there were extra appropriations to the agriculture FDA that might land him, a comfy job at some sort of special interest group, big pharma interest group. I don't know. We'll have to see where Dick Durbin goes now that he's not seeking re-election. But if it passes there in the House, the White House is expected to support it, and the government will then reopen. So this is probably going to take days. I would say no more than a week for the government to reopen. Now, one main issue that came out of the Schumer shutdown was the air traffic control thing. Okay. And I do want to get to that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Good morning, Dave Paul. Good morning. Man, we've got Tim Kaine, Judas. We've got liberals in the chat this morning. Wow, incredible. Yeah, Trump is a moron. Actually, I just don't get, out of all of this government shutdown, Trump has acted very appropriately. There were some things that I didn't agree with exactly, or full, like 100%, where he was funding the WIC program, but he kind of did it through, I think, tariffs, and he was doing it, in this politically strategic way where it wasn't like, appropriate. I don't like it, the executive branch sticking their nose into appropriations, because, hey, we have a little thing called taxation with representation. We send Congress there, they're the purse, right? We elect them. They decide how our taxpayer money is spent. And we elect them to vote on that. And we're blurring the lines. Then you have the judicial branch mandating the executive branch to appropriate funds to this government program, SNAP. It's just all blurry at this point. Trump has acted really democratically, if you will, through all of this, because he's respected, for the most part. WIC, veterans programs, he kind of funded a little bit. But he's really respected the separation of powers here. So I think it's so funny when people say, oh, Donald Trump is a tyrant. Okay. Yeah. The reason why United Healthcare, terrible times, the reason why United Healthcare makes $5 billion a year in profits is because the government gives them that money through the tax credits. Like, you know what I mean? I explained this, I think, simple enough for, a third grader to understand. The politicians love the ACA tax credits. Democrats get to say, look, we've expanded coverage. Meanwhile, big insurance quietly thanks them for, another record quarter. Thanks them both, not just Democrats, but Republicans as well. Republicans, Democrats alike, they're in the pockets of these big insurance companies. You don't think Bernie Sanders in the pocket of big pharma? Of course he is. Big pharma, these pharmaceutical companies, these hospitals are ballooning healthcare costs because they know through the ACA tax credits, they're going to get that money. Uncle Sam is footing the bill. So there's no incentive for them to bring down costs. The hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, to bring down the cost of healthcare. And then there's no real reason for them to lower their premiums, United, Blue Cross, because guess what? The government's going to be there to bail them out, or be there to give them a record quarter. So politicians love it because they quietly thank them for it through campaign donations. You, middle class, you and me, families who actually work for a living, you pay the bill in higher taxes, higher premiums, and you don't even get the option of what doctor you want. Okay, so there's fewer doctors. Like I said, the ACA tax credits, you have to select a certain insurance provider on the Obamacare exchange. So, yeah, the truth is you can't fix a broken market by feeding it more taxpayer money. You can't fix it by doing that. You can fix it by restoring competition, and that's how we fix the healthcare costs, is letting them compete and getting the government subsidies out of it completely, which we're on track to do. I'd imagine that House Speaker Mike Johnson will not bring this to a vote. The Democrats are right that this was a pinky promise. So, but that's what happens when you lose elections, because you guys are woke and people are sick and tired of you. So deal with it. Tough. All right, let's get to a few other things this morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Good morning, Cece. Appreciate you being here. Notice Bernie didn't say the word citizen. Yeah, it's not about the citizenry. It's not about the taxpayers. It's not about people who are dealing with the healthcare system. It's about Bernie Sanders is a big pharma hack. He loves the government subsidies. Why? because they quietly thank him, in kind with donations to his campaign. That was exposed earlier this year. I forget what Republican called him out on it. I'll have to look that up. But I mean, him, Elizabeth Warren, all these people who say we need to fund healthcare, socialized healthcare. Our job, he literally said it, our job is universal healthcare. Yeah, because if they're paying the insurance companies pay them back to keep them reelected and get them reelected and keep them in a job. Of course, that's why he wants universal healthcare. He wants it to be his responsibility, being in the government. He wants the government to assume that responsibility. So that way, the insurance companies and big pharma and hospitals, the healthcare industry is indebted to the government, and they will continue to have jobs because they'll quietly continue to thank them for all of the government subsidies that provide them these abundant quarters, the $5 billion that, the Liberal had mentioned, that United Healthcare makes $5 billion in profits. The reason why is because of the taxpayer subsidies. They wouldn't make that much had we not been subsidizing the whole thing. All right. I need to get to something else this morning. Let's talk about the air traffic controllers, because this is funny. The air traffic controllers are still kind of required to work, but a lot of them aren't getting paid, so a lot of them aren't showing up. That's, putting a real strain on, our ability to handle flights. So hence, Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, he came out with an announcement saying we're going to reduce the flights. Now, he has detailed these problems in press releases, press conferences. I've watched them. He's detailed the problems. He said, hey, I think they've reduced it by 10%. They're going to reduce it more. It probably will be irrelevant by the end of the week because the House should vote on this deal soon. It should take, days, hopefully not months or weeks. But if they don't act soon, the House, on this new CR, this amended CR, then there's going to be more problems, more chaos when it comes to flights and air traffic controllers. So former member of Congress and current candidate for governor of California, Katie Porter, she came out, trying to beef up her profile, her national profile. She's taken a few hits, politically, or her public relations in the toilet, really. And she came out and she thought in her head that attacking Sean Duffy and President Donald Trump was definitely something that she should do. And it was going to help her with her Democrat base. But of course, it didn't go well for her. So starting with the lie, she blamed Donald Trump for what was going on with the airlines and canceling flights. Okay. When it's clearly the Democrats up to this point, I think they voted like 16 times, maybe 14 to 16 times against the CR. It was a clean CR. They voted so long, or so there are so many chances that they had to not prolong the shutdown, but they chose to prolong the shutdown. That is at the Democrats' feet there. Okay. So they are to blame. So she lies and she starts blaming Donald Trump and saying that he's the reason why all the flights are canceled. Porter acted as though she was offering up a profound idea to help the situation here in this video. And then she started attacking people who have, private planes. Let's take a listen to what Katie Porter says in this video. She thought she was, really had this profound idea here, but take a listen.
Here's a question for Donald Trump as he forces airlines to cancel thousands and thousands of flights. Why is he starting first with the commercial planes that we all use to go visit our families or get where we need to for work? Every day, thousands of private jets take off, carrying CEOs, billionaires, and the 1%, and they take up the work of the air traffic control system too. Wouldn't it make more sense to cancel the planes that carry the fewest passengers first? It's just another example of who Donald Trump really cares about, and it isn't us.
exhausting. Okay, so that was Katie Porter. Smash that like button if you're here. Subscribe to the channel. Always support the program by visiting patriotpumpenergy.com, buying your bottle of premium pre-workout today. This a supplement. Dick Durbin, by the way, wants to get rid of supplements. They really don't like the supplement industry, and I get it. Like, some of it can be kind of scammy. You just have to, look out for, these blends where they don't tell you what's in them. This has the supplement facts right on the back. You can read everything that's in it. And there's no artificial dyes, colorings. There's not an exorbitant amount of caffeine. The goal here is not to get you hooked on drugs. Okay. And I hate to say this, but energy drinks and some of these supplements, these pre-workouts, it looks like their goal is to try to get you hooked on caffeine and sugar. And we're not about that. We tell you everything that's in that product. Supplements, it's a great alternative to big pharma. If you do it right, and if you buy trusted supplement or buy from trusted supplement companies that are transparent about what they're putting in their products. Okay. So let's get back to Katie Porter. She talks about this private plane stuff, which is, she does not know what she's talking about. So Secretary Duffy actually served her up a schooling on the subject. He called her a hack in a Fox News report. And he explained that commercial airlines do have priority. They already have priority, through the canceling, through the reduction of flights. Commercial airlines have priority. The priority is the traveling public, is what Duffy confirmed. He said, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. He termed Porter's attack here nice political theater. So I'm going to share with you a clip. This was on Fox News Sunday. And then I'll share with you his tweet, which is really rich. But first, let's get to the clip. Here we go.
Katie Porter is a hack. That's not what happened. In the order, we reduced general aviation or jet travel by 10%. But what we've also done is that, if we have a staffing trigger, I think Nate was at LaGuardia, or in Newark, we have one in Newark this morning. If we have a staffing trigger, there's going to be no jets flying into Newark. We prioritize commercial aircraft. Now, if there's a space to fly in with general aviation or a jet, we'll allow them in. But the priority is the traveling public. And so that's been the order. That's been how this has been implemented. So it's nice political theater, but that's not what we're doing. Katie Porter's a hack.
It's nice political theater. He also posted on X. Here's his tweet. Hopefully Katie doesn't pour hot mashed potatoes on me for correcting her, but restrictions for private jets are already in place. Yeah, if you were to read any of the press releases that came out from the Transportation Secretary, from the Department of Transportation, or the U.S. Department of Transportation, if you were to have read any of that, you would have known that private jets are not prioritized, and commercial flights or airplanes already have priority. So this is a burn. Excuse my my pun here. This is a burn. Don't pour hot mashed potatoes on me, Katie Porter, please. I'm correcting you. His comment is in reference to, if you guys are new to the program, I've explained this before. There is a report out there, like an official law enforcement report, that she allegedly dumped hot mashed potatoes all over her ex-husband. Yikes. Allegedly. So the ex, Matthew Hoffman, recently dished more on her and how bad she was on her staff, was on her own staff. Okay, so there have been clips of Katie Porter screaming the F word, profanities at her staffers. And Matthew Hoffman, her ex-husband, has said that Katie Porter did not get along with even Democrat Nancy Pelosi. In a recent recent month or so, Katie has really come under fire for some viral videos her yelling at a staffer, using expletives. Then she did this really rough interview where the reporter asked her a very simple question, like, how are you going to get Trump supporters to vote for you? You're going to need some of the Trump supporters in order to win the election in California for governor. And she said that this interview's over. So she's had a few viral videos that drop of her being exposed as really a angry person. The former FAA official, Dan Elwell, also confirmed that passenger planes would have priority anytime you reduce flights or if there's a shortage of air traffic controllers, you're going to give commercial planes the priority. Okay. And he said that Dan Elwell said that Porter's statement was unfounded. There's no proof that private planes are given priority, and everything up to this point proves that they are giving commercial airlines priority, okay? The traveling public priority. So Porter wants to be governor of California, but she can't even grasp the first thing about the issue before launching this unfounded attack. Okay, she didn't even stop, look at the plan that the U.S. Department of Transportation released. And she says, join the fight at the end. I don't know if you guys caught that. It says Katie Porter or whatever.com or yeah, join the fight at katieporter.com. Join the fight. Join what? Being incredibly wrong. You were incredibly wrong. Pro tip. Also, don't take videos this close up. I don't think that was a good idea. I don't know who said on her campaign team that would be a good idea. A close-up video of her like that doesn't look great. So pro tip, close-up's not a good idea. And join the fight. What? Join what? You're incredibly wrong. You launched an unfounded attack, yet you want to be governor of California, and you can't even really grasp the issue and how the U.S. Department of Transportation is solving the issue with the reduced flights, air traffic controllers. It's just ridiculousness. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Gavin Newsom, because Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom has told Illinois that we have to redraw our congressional maps. Now, I've seen some maps out there where we've reduced the Republican districts from 3 to 1. That's freaky. And I said it before, when I wanted Darren LaHood to enter in, that was before Darren Bailey entered into the gubernatorial race here. I said he should really enter Darren LaHood, because who knows, maybe his congressional state, he shouldn't try to keep his congressional state, because who knows, they'll probably write him out of it, as they do here in the state of Illinois, and it might just happen. So we're going to talk about that, because Governor Gavin Newsom is urging Illinois to really rig the election the 2026 midterms in favor of the Democrats. That's what this is. So apparently California hasn't ruined itself enough. They are now trying to ruin, or they're calling on Illinois to ruin itself even more than it already has. So smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I will be right back.
Real strength doesn't need applause, and real faith doesn't flex for attention. Jesus said, when you fast, don't walk around looking miserable. Try to look holy. That's not devotion. That's performance. And God doesn't reward actors. Matthew 6, verses 16 through 18. Is Jesus calling men to fast in secret, where only the Father sees? Because fasting isn't about proving your discipline. It's about pursuing God with hunger. So real, you trade food for fire. You don't fast to earn points. You don't fast to make space. You weaken the flesh so the spirit gets louder. You say no to your cravings so you can say yes to something deeper. But here's the catch. It's got to be real. Not for your boys, not for social media, just you and God, in the quiet, in the dark. That's where rewards are born, in silence, in secret, in the furnace of unseen obedience. You want to be strong in public? Train in private. Fast without a stage. Pray without applause. Obey without a crowd. Your Father sees in secret, and He's the only one who reward what matters. Patriot Pump doesn't give you just energy. It keeps you focused. No fluff, no crash, just clean, hard-driving fuel for men who train with purpose and sacrifice. If you're building discipline in the dark, this is your edge. Train hard, stay sharp.
Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and go ahead and subscribe. We are very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. Didn't think we would get here this soon. We were hoping by Christmas, and we're kind of on pace to get to 1,000 subscribers. So grateful for you being here today. I know you've got options. Glad you choose the Conservative Cat Show. Today we've got to get into Illinois redrawing their congressional maps. Is that a possibility? Yes, and I'm kind of nervous. I've seen. I don't know if Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker will risk damaging his national profile because he's launching that presidential bid in 2028. Likely, I don't know if he's going to risk it. So, will he listen to Governor Gavin Newsom, who's calling on him to redraw his congressional maps? We'll have to see. All right, so. Let's set the stage here. Governor Gavin Newsom, same guy who locked down his state, dined maskless at, fancy restaurants, rules for thee, not for me kind of guy. He watched half his population flee to Texas and Florida. He just won his Proposition 50 battle. Okay, so Proposition 50, what it does, it eliminates this independent commission that they had voted on, I think, like 5 years ago, the California voters. It's an independent commission, so full of, nonpartisan individuals who draw the maps. So what Prop 50 does, it eliminates that and installs a partisan group of people to draw the maps. And he took to the microphone recently, Governor Gavin Newsom, and he wagged a finger at President Donald Trump. And he told states like Illinois, we need you to meet the moment, is the quote. Okay, meet the moment, Illinois, meet the moment. Governor, I'm sorry, but your state is in such a financial mess. You can't even meet the payroll, your government payroll, okay, without federal bailouts, okay? So sit down, man. Your state has run so poorly, almost as bad as Illinois. I don't know. I think that they're pretty tight. I think that California might be slightly worse. Okay, so now Newsom is calling on Illinois, New York, Colorado to redraw their congressional maps outside of the normal post-census process. Now, what's so fascinating about this is that this kind of all started because Texas started redrawing their maps. Now, the reason why Texas started redrawing their maps was because, get this, the DOJ under Biden, the Biden administration, they said, your maps are racist, essentially. And they, said that you're in violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, okay? So then Texas, goes to the drawing board and then starts to redraw their maps in order to kind of comply with this litigation. Now, this litigation was dropped quietly in March of 2025. Really, it's not even Texas. I don't think that it might be a little bit. I know that Donald Trump came out and said, redraw your maps, but there's good reason for it because Texas has had such an influx of people, whether that be illegal immigration. It's a border state. They've had an influx of illegal immigrants come in that were maybe counted in the census. And then they also have the influx from states like Illinois, California, population growth. Okay, so they really needed to address some of these unprecedented some of this unprecedented population growth. Okay, and they needed to ensure that there weren't, illegal immigrants included in the census. Also, they were complying with the Biden DOJ's lawsuit that said that their maps were racist. So it was just like kind of a trifecta of, hey, we have to redraw our maps. And then all of a sudden the Democrats like started to lose their minds, and they were like, oh, they're trying to, gain Republican seats for the 2026 election, which I don't know, maybe. But, Democrat states, including California, Illinois, they have been gerrymandering. Our state is probably the most gerrymandered, Illinois, out of all 50 states, and they've been doing this for decades. And really, if you ask me, if it's not the trifecta that launched Texas into this redrawing thing, if it's not that, and it is truly to gain Republican seats and be political about it for a political advantage in 2026, I say good on Texas, because these Democrat states have been doing it for decades. It's about time somebody stood up to them and said enough. Okay, so now what Newsom is doing, he's calling on Illinois to redraw their map in this outside of the normal post-census process. Okay, the normal post-census process. So he says redraw them, redraw the lines, squeeze a few districts in, dilute some of your districts, your Republican districts, and make them more Democrat by redrawing the lines, okay, including more parts of Chicago, really. So I'll have to find that map. I'll pull it up here in the next break and show you. A buddy of mine sent it to me, and it's been kind of like passed around Republican circles like this could be potentially the new map. I don't know if Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to risk damaging his national profile. This would be damaging to his national profile ahead of a expected 2028 presidential bid, especially 2026 gubernatorial run being right around the corner. Okay, so I don't know if he's going to want to damage his political profile here, and I think that it would. Okay, so what's really going on here? It's not democracy, it's desperation. The Democrat Party, they are staring down a rough 2026 election. I think that they know that they're in for it. And the voters were still angry about inflation, the inflation caused under Joe Biden, the crime. We're still angry about the open borders, and we're starting to see a healing going on. Even when it comes to the cultural decay of our nation, we're starting to see a healing, like Cracker Barrel going woke, and then all of a sudden backtracking and saying, no, we're not going to go woke anymore. We're going to keep our logo. That shows me that the cultural decay is not winning anymore. Sydney Sweeney, her doing the American Eagle jeans ad, like we are finally healing from the cultural decay that was under the Biden administration, and people are sick of the cultural decay, the open borders, the crime, and Donald Trump is fixing a lot of that. Look what he did in Washington, D.C. Inflation, like, I don't know about you, but gas is down, eggs are down. There's some things that are still up. The tariff thing, we're going to probably get to tomorrow, because I know a lot of you have questions about the $2,000 stimmy checks. Stimmies, they're kind of like stimmies, not really. We'll get into that tomorrow. I don't want to talk about it too much today. But I'm really kind of excited. I'm not totally against the $2,000 checks. I would love a $2,000 check. That'd be pretty great. But there's some problems with it. But really what it is, it's not like COVID money, okay? COVID money was just taking money and giving it away. We don't want that. I told you the problems with the healthcare costs, and you do tax subsidies, you give the taxpayers, or you give the people money from the taxpayers. You just kind of wind up ballooning costs because everybody knows that they have $2,000 to spend. I don't want to inflate the economy anymore. But the money that we're saving from Donald Trump's tariffs, really, if he weren't to just cut a straight up check, what the goal here is with the tariff is so that way we don't have to rely on such a taxpayer funded, taxpayer sourced revenue. Okay. Now they're trying to say that his goal, the courts with the tariffs, his goal is like a fiscal goal, which kind of, but not really. And there's powers that and we're going to get on all of this tomorrow, and I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole, but Uh, there's powers that the president has been afforded since like 1930s, when they gave some powers to the president, and then a little bit later they gave him some more powers to tariff as it relates to national security. And I think that is his primary goal, to stop China from taking over the world. Okay, that is really what I think the goal of the tariffs are. And then like a nice little side benefit is we don't get taxed as much, and we get some of our revenue generated from tariffs the way it used to be. So prior to 1930, and the Democrats always point to 1930 as like, hey, this is why tariffs didn't work. Well, it was the Great Depression. It wasn't ever really going to work. And prior to 1930, they were working as means to offset or to, bring equity to this revenue generating system, the government revenue system. So right now, we don't rely on tariffs at all. And Donald Trump is changing that slowly but surely, where we use some of this tariff money as a means of revenue so we can relieve the taxpayer. So that's a nice little side benefit. Donald Trump, though, I do think is doing this as a matter of national security, which is what his powers kind of afford him to do, as far as tariffing goes. I'd love to see it all done through Congress. I don't know why Congress doesn't do it. Congress should just pass bills and tariff, so they can't do this whole orange man bad thing and have the courts try to legislate, because the courts are, not understanding separation of powers, and that's really not their domain. The president has some tariffing power. Congress has tariffing power as it relates to fiscal reasons and revenue generating reasons. But what Donald Trump is doing here with the tariffs is it's like 4D chess. He is trying to get the courts, because right now the courts are saying he can't do it. It would look really bad, and he's trying to sway public opinion on it. And he's saying, okay, I'm going to give you $2,000 from the tariff money. Really, we were going to get $2,000 anyway from tax breaks. But he's just going to kind of write checks instead of, us see it, in the form of tax reduction. I really want to see income taxes. And that's kind of how it used to be prior to the 1930s. There was no such thing as federal income tax. I know our household pays an exorbitant amount in income taxes. I want to see that eliminated. I would prefer that rather than the $2,000 check. But we're not there yet. So what Donald Trump is doing is playing 4D chess with the courts, and he's trying to sway public opinion about the tariffs, because now people are pro-tariffs. You see, if everybody's getting a $2,000 check, then it kind of, because people, it's hard to explain to people that the tariffs are ultimately going to put more money in your pocket. Okay, that's hard to explain to people. People don't get it. Once you start throwing around checks, people are like, yay, checks. I've had so many people already ask me, like, have you heard about the $2,000 checks? And I'm like, yeah, it's a game by Donald Trump, because he's a genius. And I really appreciate what he's doing with the tariffs. It's probably the number one reason why I voted for him, is because his just foreign policy is just fabulous. So what he's doing is he's playing 4D chess to try to get, because the courts would then look like the bad guy. They're taking $2,000. They say, okay, you tariff this foreign country, and you're going to take that money and give it to the American people. And then the courts would have to come around and say, okay, well, take that money back from the American people and give it to the foreign country. Courts start to look, the judicial branch starts to look a little anti-American, and that's the whole purpose. All right, I went down a rabbit hole. Let's get back to what I was talking about, shall we? I will be doing an entire tariff show tomorrow and breaking it down piece by piece. We'll do a little bit of history, 1930s, when the president, the executive branch, actually got some power to tariff, and then got some more power to tariff, and why the courts are wrong. Donald Trump can totally use his presidential powers to tariff. I would prefer Congress do it, because then they wouldn't have the orange man bad card that they play, the courts. But But yeah, we need to get rid of the filibuster and all of that. So anyway, we'll do that tomorrow. I want to get back to the rigging of the election here in the state of Illinois. Well, rigging of the 2026 election, the national election. And, you know, this is not democracy. This is desperation. Like I said, the Democrat Party, they are looking at a rough 2026 election. Voters are still peeved off about the inflation under Joe Biden. We're seeing the crime go down under Donald Trump. We're seeing this cultural decay heal. So they are freaking out. And that is why Governor Gavin Newsom is out there saying, you have to meet the moment. It's not meeting the moment. You're rigging the election if the Democrats start to gerrymander in response to what Texas was doing. Like I said, there was this trifecta. It was the Biden DOJ lawsuit. You had a lot of population influx from liberal cities, liberal states. And then you also had the influx of illegal immigrants. There was this like recipe for disaster here in Texas where they had no choice but to redraw their maps, really. So in order to comply with the litigation from the DOJ, and if not the trifecta, then good on Texas for finally saying enough with the decades of Democrat gerrymandering. We're going to offset it here in the 2026, and I'm not totally opposed to that either. Anyway, so Illinois ethics advocates are sounding the alarms. Ryan Tully, he's quoted in the Center Square, who's the executive director of Change Illinois. He came out swinging, and he said Illinois' 2021 maps are already highly partisan and gerrymandered. Translation, Democrats drew the line so tightly around their own voters, you'd need to get a crowbar to wedge in a Republican. Okay, they have really made it impossible for Republicans to be represented here in the state at a federal level. There are 3 congressional seats that are Republican, yet over 40% of the electorate are Republican. California governor is urging Illinois to redraw their maps, and the maps already are drawn to favor one party. Okay, you know what that is? We've got a burnt cake, and you're putting extra frosting on it, and you know it still tastes rotten. The presentation might improve, but it still tastes rotten. Ryan Tully of Change Illinois, he came out and he said, like, look, this is actually going to be really bad for Black voters in Cook County. So what they're going to wind up doing is splitting a lot of these districts, and it's going to hurt the Black community in Chicago and in Cook County. Okay. So what they're going to wind up doing is these Republican districts that we have 3, Mary Miller, Mike Boss, and Darren LaHood. They're going to go up and they're going to snake in parts of Chicago to make them Democrat districts. And they're going to probably leave like 1 Republican district if they were to do this thing. And what that does up here in Chicago, you're splitting these Black voters up in Chicago. And, you know, this is supposed to be the party of racial justice. When you do that, you're making it harder for Black voters in Cook County to know who their representative is and to get their candidates elected. You're making it harder for them. And, you know, this is coming from a party who talks about racial justice all of the time. Every time a Democrat talks about empowering Black voters, it always ends with Chicago empowering themselves, or Democrats empowering themselves. So that's not empowering. Splitting up these Black voters, messing with their districts, messing with their representation. You're going to really screw up the Black voter representation there. But they don't want representation. They want retention. They want retention of power. And they want to ensure that no Republican gets elected here in the state of Illinois. So let's put a Christian lens on this. You know, because when the government gets greedy, it's not just a political problem, it's a moral one. So Proverbs 11:1 says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but just weight is to his delight. And that's exactly what gerrymandering is. It's a false balance. It's a dishonest scale. politicians tipping the weight of democracy in their favor, pretending that this process is fair when we all know that it's rigged. And, when power becomes an idol, fairness becomes a casualty. There is no reason for over 40% of the electorate here in the state of Illinois not having representation. So you've got the ruling class from Sacramento to Springfield. They have turned the map of America, this congressional maps, into a golden calf. They bow down to it because it gives them power, not because it honors truth. And they'll manipulate these maps to retain power. So let's look at the bigger picture here. Newsom is not alone. You got Hakeem Jeffries coming all the way up to Illinois, trying to urge Illinois to redraw their maps, and he's going to other states as well. This is a coordinated pressure campaign from the Democrats because they can't stand the idea of losing power to everyday Americans, to the everyday Americans who are going to vote Republican in 2026, red wave, right? Tully even pointed out that, some of this political rhetoric might be used like Gavin Newsom saying, okay, Illinois, redraw your maps. Or Pritzker saying like, yeah, that's a potential, us redrawing the maps. That might just all be rhetoric to try to dissuade Republican-led states from doing it, because they're going to say, man, if Illinois does it, California does it, Colorado does it, then ours isn't really going to count, and we should probably just, stop. But I would encourage red states to go full speed, full throttle, and expose these Democrat states for what they truly are, which are, rigging the election. Go full throttle and show them, and say, hey, enough's enough. You guys have been rigging the election via gerrymandering for decades. It's our turn now. That's what I would like to see. So these states, by the way, would be more justified because they are gaining population, and Illinois and California, they're hemorrhaging population faster than a leaky pipe. And when you have those insane population gains, you kind of need to go back to the drawing board, right? So they're kind of justified in this. So Democrats want to flex its partisan muscle. Illinois wants to flex its partisan muscle as a counterweight to red states. Okay. Now, that's about control, and they have these insanely Democrat majority states like Illinois who can do this and who can, flex this partisan muscle. But here's the irony about all of this. Democrats are always the ones who say things like, we have to defend democracy. Okay, Republicans don't say that. Okay, so them gerrymandering or doing redistricting, like, yeah, so what? They don't even really say, oh, we have to defend democracy, right? But Democrats are out there ensuring that voters have fewer choices, and yet they're the ones who say things like, we have to defend democracy. So if you think the Justice Department, I'm kind of waiting for this, and Trump kind of alluded to it, at least for California, when they passed Prop 50, that the DOJ would be kind of stepping in. He talked a little bit about it on Truth Social. I haven't seen anything since. I don't think that the DOJ is going to be swooping in anytime soon. I would like to see them do it, because guess what? The DOJ under Joe Biden, I told you that they had launched a lawsuit against Texas over their minority voting power. And they just recently quietly dropped that. No ruling, no explanation, really. They quietly dropped that. And, I would love to see, let me pull this up here. I would love to see the Trump DOJ do the same thing the Biden DOJ was trying to do to Texas at the time. California's map. So that's kind of how the machine works. They make all this noise when it benefits them politically. So the DOJ made all kinds of noise when it was going to benefit the Democrats politically to launch this lawsuit against Texas for their maps, and they cried racism, and they accused Texas of diluting minority votes. Okay, and they cited the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and the same, it can't be done like though the DOJ, and I'm not expecting this. Trump said maybe with the California maps, and I'm hoping he does, because they've done it to Republican states they weaponized the DOJ under Joe Biden. They've gone after Republican states for their maps. So when Illinois wants to redraw their maps, and this is actually going to split minority communities up, suddenly it's necessary reform, and the DOJ is kind of quiet on this. So the Trump DOJ needs to get it together. I would say go after, launch lawsuits, cite the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and say that they're splitting up minority communities by redrawing their maps. So, double standards aren't a glitch in the system. They are the system. And anytime it benefits the Democrats politically, they go with that and they don't fight back. So one thing we have to note, though, is that the Supreme Court is now reviewing a case in Louisiana. It's a Louisiana case, and they're going to try to gut that part of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. That's the part that basically is stupid. It's fake and gay, and it bans racial discrimination in redistricting. So if that happens, there's going to be a lot of interesting things, like a feeding frenzy from both sides, because they will, this Voting Rights Act kind of prohibits states from, redistricting, like these Democrat majority, super majority, they just do whatever the heck they want. But the Voting Rights Act kind of prohibits them from doing whatever the hell they want. I'm pro getting rid of the Voting Rights Act. I think it's dumb. I think it's fake and gay, especially the Section 2. So I hope that the Supreme Court that's reviewing that Louisiana case actually votes against Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. I would be pro that, because I think that it's just silliness. It's like racist. It makes no sense why you have to draw these maps based on race. We should be drawing it based on geographics, like location, geographical location, and population. And race should not be a factor. It's the same thing for scholarships or things in colleges. Merit and, should you be here at college? Should you be accepted? Should you receive this scholarship based on merit? The only things that should be considered: geographical location. How easy is it for a congressman to get to this side of his district to the other side of the district? Is it hard? Is it a 4-hour district? That's probably not a good district, and is impossible for him to, meet the needs of his constituents if it's that large of a district. For example, in Illinois, you scoop in parts of Chicago and parts of Southern Illinois. That's just too big of a district, and you're going to screw over the congressman, and he can't reach all of his constituency, which isn't fair representation. So my thoughts: geographics and population. How big is the district, and can the congressman physically go from one side of the district to the next? So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that Louisiana case. I think that the moment this federal oversight kind of disappears, you're going to see state cartographers come out like little piranhas and they're going to start redrawing all of their maps without any kind of state oversight, or without any kind of federal oversight. And I think there should be federal oversight, but we should definitely not be using race as a part of that standard of drawing our maps. That's kind of silly. Geographical location and population. Anyway, so let's break down what could actually happen if Illinois decides to redraw its map. So what would this actually logistically look like? Tully says that lawmakers can theoretically call a special session, but we're kind of getting close to the primary here. And they would have to change the date of their primary, most likely, if they were to actually call a special session. It would be one of those urgent, middle of the night kind of things where taxpayers are asleep and the lobbyists are awake, right? So it would be like a special session, they'd call it, and then they might have to move the date of the primary, which is a possibility. They could move the district lines, change election schedules, and then they would call it a democracy upgrade. That's what could happen. Now, is it going to happen? I don't know, because Governor J.B. Pritzker, like I said, doesn't want to damage his national profile. I think that would be pretty damaging to his national profile. But then again, Governor J.B. Pritzker does all kinds of things that are damaging to his national profile, like getting out there and saying that Donald Trump is attacking, people in the middle of the night in their sleep or whatever. The Democrats are saying that ICE agents are zip tying people and, stoning them in the street or whatever. I don't know. I think that's pretty damaging. Most people, even in Chicago, want a crackdown on the illegal immigration. But anyway, here's what it really is. This is politicians picking their voters instead of voters picking their politicians. That's what gerrymandering is. And every time they do it, we lose trust in our elections more and more and more. And that's why people don't vote. Republicans don't vote in Illinois, because of the insane gerrymandering that's gone on. Change Illinois is calling for independent redistricting commissions, similar to what California had prior to Prop 50 just passing in the most recent election. And of course, in theory, that sounds great. But knowing Illinois, this independent commission would probably wind up being an appointed commission of the governor's friends. Okay, so, I mean, sure, you can do an independent commission, but how independent would it really be? I think with modern technology, I don't even understand why we leave this up to humans at all. We could probably generate, a fair map without the human element at all in factored into the equation. So, this is the same state. We have to remember Illinois is the same state where ethic reforms bills, they're written by indicted legislators. Like, quite seriously, like some of them, like Thaddeus Jones is under or charged or under investigation. Let me rephrase that. Under investigation. A lot of these legislators have been under investigation, and they're out there writing ethics reforms bills. So forgive me if I'm skeptical over, independent commissions and things like that. We don't have to leave it up to human error or human opinions or feelings. We could just do it all electronically at this point. So I want you to imagine the redistricting meeting that happens in Springfield. It'll go like something like this. Governor Gavin Newsom, he'll say, all right, team, we're redrawing the map and we're saving democracy. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he says, democracy? I thought we were just saving my job. I thought we were saving, my job, my clout in the Democrat Party. The staffer chimes in, hey, maybe we should get the public to, public input for this. Maybe we should consider the public. Maybe we shouldn't split the minority communities. Pritzker says, the public? That's adorable. No, I'll just post a PDF of the map once it's done, and then we'll call it transparency, and then we'll say that we saved democracy or democracy got an upgrade. Newsom says, perfect. Yes. Now let's call it the People's Map Act. And Pritzker, will chime in and he'll say, hey, while we're at it, why don't we just tax people for creating the PDF and creating, these new maps and this new commission or this new map? But why don't we just tax them? Because why not? So that's how it would kind of go behind closed doors. They'd have donuts and no accountability, but plenty of donuts, and they'd all sit around a table and not seek public input and not draw these maps fairly. So let's bring it home. Why does this matter? You're probably wondering, Kat, you spent a lot of time on this morning. Yes, because people are losing faith in their elections. People in Illinois don't vote anymore because the whole system really is corrupt and it's starting to crumble because of the decades of gerrymandering. So it doesn't matter if you're on the left, the right, the center, your voice is lost in this gerrymandering process. When political boundaries become political weapons, every voter loses their voice. The Constitution depends on honest representation, not engineered outcomes. And Illinois doesn't need Gavin Newsom's advice. We need repentance from the political class who has gerrymandered this map for decades. Look at the map of Illinois from 1970. I mean, that was based on, it was like a grid. Now it's like, it looks like a toddler made it. So we need repentance. And, scripture says in Proverbs 29, verse 2, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And we as Christians, as conservatives, as citizens, what's our role? Our role is to stand watch, call out the corruption when we see it, to defend fairness. And really, I think that the DOJ needs to step in here. Any of these Democrat states that are doing this, they need to invoke, as long as it's still a thing, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Biden DOJ did it against Republican states. The Republican DOJ should do it. The Trump DOJ should do it against Democrat states for doing the same thing. That is defending fairness, even if it would be deeply unpopular. So, yeah, let me wrap this up. When Gavin Newsom tells Illinois to meet the moment, he's right. We should meet the moment, but not in the way he thinks. We need to meet the moment by standing for truth, resisting political manipulation, and remembering our map was written long before Washington and Springfield ever existed. Our map, that map is the Word of God, and we need to consult the Word of God before writing these maps and doing the right thing and looking at the honest scales, because dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'm going to be right back. Smash that or subscribe to the channel as well. When we come back, we're going to talk about Zoran Mamdani. And Senator John Fetterman actually came out and he was saying that, like, hey, making extremists the face of our party, probably not such a great idea. And he also talked about, how socialism, the end stage of socialism is not where you want to be when it's implemented. It's death. Socialism kills. Okay. And there's actually this representative. He is a Republican from Florida, and he actually came from a communist regime, Cuba. And he was the former Miami-Dade mayor. He is now Representative Carlos Gimenez, and he's a Republican in Florida, and he is not staying silent. He's saying that, hey, I know people like Marxist, communist, Zoran Mamdani. I had to deal with it. I'm a survivor of communist regime. And he's, issuing a warning saying, hey, this is not good. And then you guys will want to stick around because we're going to talk about something very fascinating that's going on in Minnesota. So in Minnesota, there was, in Minnesota, there's this, or Minneapolis, there's this race that took place, a mayoral race. And this guy lost. His name is Omar Fateh. Okay. And he had the endorsement of Ilhan Omar. So what's going on in this state really is fascinating, because there is a Somalian clan clash going on. And it's really weird because you've got Somali clans like battling it out. So I think that Ilhan is going to maybe see a primary challenger from this opposing Somali clan. It's so weird. imported so many illegal immigrants into America that we are now having like these foreign wars on American soil. So we're going to get into that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. 44 to go till 1,000. Yes, subscribe. Safe to say, or stay safe, and may the Lord's light shine on you and yours, kiddo. Oh, I appreciate you being here, Henry. I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. I think I saw that. Praying for you always, my friend. Yes. So before we took the break, we were talking about Zoran Mamdani. So he is the self-proclaimed Democrat socialist, mayor-elect New York City. Okay, and he's made some statements that even Democrats, like former Obama administration green energy czar and CNN host Van Jones, this commentator, he's a commentator on CNN. He has been questioning really how much of a 180 Zoran has made since the election day on November 4th. He's done a bit of a 180. So he kind of was like watered down socialist, like kind of like a Bernie Sanders prior to November 4th. Now all of a sudden it's starting to look like he's all in on communism. And I'll get to a couple of reasons why I say that, and why Van Jones, even the Obama administration green energy czar, and he's on CNN now. Van Jones, he's starting to say, hey, he's kind of doing a bit of a 180. And it's not like Democrat leaders don't know what Mamdani is all about. I want to be clear about that, because they knew from the beginning. They all know from the beginning. Now he can try to water it down and kind of be like more of a silly Bernie Sanders socialist. But he's so much more. He's a Marxist communist. Okay, and the Democrat leaders knew that prior to the November 4th election, and shame on them for not speaking up. We did have one Democrat speak up about this. It was Senator John Fetterman. He was decrying, making the extremists of his party. He was warning, hey, making the extremists of our party the face of the future. I mean, not a good idea. And he didn't mince words about socialism and the end goal of socialism, which is truly death of, the plebs and, wherever it's been implemented, the end stage of socialism is not good. So this is what John Fetterman says. He said, we all know how socialism works, he warned. That's a short, powerful statement. And he doesn't really need to elaborate on it, because we all know how it works. History tells us how it works. People die. We know, and we don't want to go there. That is what Fetterman says. He goes, we know, and we don't want to go there. We don't want to go towards socialism. So Fetterman also scolded the Democrats, as people in his party, for keeping the government shut down. He says, quote, this is wrong. We're hurting everyone. The very people we fight for, we're getting nothing for them if we continue to keep the government shut down. So I've picked out two examples, two examples for you, my subscribers, of evidence from this week that shows that Zoran Mamdani has kind of done what I would call a 180, although the Democrat leadership knows deep down that this guy is a communist Marxist socialist. And he's an extremist. John Fetterman was warning about it. Now you have CNN Vance Jones saying, like, yeah, he's kind of done a 180 from the campaign since just getting elected on November 4th. Yeah, so first let's look at this example of how he's like really dug his heels into this communist Marxist thing. The New York chapter of Democrat Socialists of America, according to reports, are putting pressure on Mamdani to implement a wish list of demands now that he's risen up to being a mayor-elect. And they want to, among their list of demands, they want radical left items, including an adoption of anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS. So they want that from Mamdani. So what does that mean? That means you don't buy anything from Israel. You don't work with Israel. You sanction Israel. I mean, this is not pie in the sky stuff here, folks, because Zohran Mamdani has openly supported anti-Semitic divestiture movement, and he supported this kind of in the past. So this isn't anything too shocking if you're paying attention. But people like Van Jones, they'll come out and they'll say, he's done like a 180 since the campaign. I knew that he was going to be radical. I knew that he was going to probably meet the demands of the Democrat Socialists of America, who are the most extreme of the Democrat Party, the DSA. So, yeah, that's what's one example. Okay, here's the second example of him kind of going away from like milquetoast, like chill socialist to full-blown Marxist communist. This is a great example. Carlos, he's a representative now. He was the former Miami-Dade mayor. He's a Florida representative, and he's not staying silent. He is seeing what Zohran Mamdani's policies are, and he has actually been a victim of a brutal communist regime, Cuba. And he has a powerful warning for you about communist and Marxist, and he goes as far as to say that Mamdani is a Marxist. And he says that people like Mamdani try to trick people into buying into what amounts really to Marxism, but they won't tell you it's Marxism, right? So all throughout the campaign trail up to the November 4th election, he was kind of milquetoast and didn't actually call it what it was, which is Marxism. They will call it whatever benefits them politically, okay? Whatever they might call it. They won't call it Marxism, though. So Carlos Jimenez, he posted a video on his X account. He says, "I am the only member of Congress born in Cuba. My family was forced from my home after a communist takeover. I recognize extremists when I see them." Take a listen to this. Here we go.
I'm the only Cuban-born member of Congress. That means I was born in Cuba. I was not born here in the United States. I didn't speak a word of English until I got here. I was 7 years old. And the reason I'm here is that my parents brought me here seeking freedom. Freedom from communism, freedom from a Marxist regime. And so I can tell you that I know a communist and a Marxist when I see one. They may call themselves socialists, they may call themselves a democratic socialist, but make no mistake, Mamdani in New York, he's a Marxist. And the thing that bothers me is he's very proud to say, well, I'm young, I'm this, I'm that, I'm Muslim. I understand you can be proud of that. But then, if you're so proud, don't call yourself a democratic socialist. You are a Marxist. Go ahead. Tell people exactly who you are. He couldn't, and he can't because he knew he wouldn't get elected. But I hope that the people of New York do not suffer the same consequences that my homeland of Cuba has suffered. Castro and the Castro regime destroyed my homeland. They can't even keep the lights on. They don't have food, they don't have medicine, they can't keep the lights on. It's a total disaster of an island, a beautiful island that actually had the second highest standard of living in the Western Hemisphere when the regime took over. And so one of the reasons I'm in Congress, the primary reason I'm in Congress is that I want to make sure that my children and grandchildren never suffer the same fate that my parents did, having to leave their country and bring us to a new country with about $10 in their pocket. Now, that's what makes this country great. My parents came here with $10 in their pocket and a watch. By the way, I still have that watch. All right. And here I am. Their son was a firefighter. He was a city manager. He was a county commissioner, county mayor of the largest county in the state of Florida, and now a member of Congress. I don't think there's too many countries that you can say that can happen. That's why I love this country. That's why I will fight for this country. And again, I know a Marxist when I see one. And it's unfortunate that the Democrat Party is heading that way, which means we just have to fight that much harder.
There you have it. I like this guy. Representative Carlos Jimenez. He explained what bothers him so much about Zohran Mamdani, the soon-to-be mayor of New York, is that he claims to be proud of who he is, and then he does not really proclaim his identity. His obvious identity is really what he is a Marxist. So it's kind of like this shadow, or this, a very sneaky way of getting elected. He's proud of who he is, but he won't say who he is. And like this congressman says, he knows the obvious reason why he doesn't come out and say who he is, truly, who is a Marxist communist. It's because he can't win if he says it, because everybody knows how bad communism is. And he wouldn't get elected if he was honestly if he was transparent about who he is. So he says, I know a Marxist when I see one. Here's someone we should listen to. Okay. This guy, he's seen it. We have to be on our guard. We have to warn people about the deceptive ploy from the left. And it's truly deception, because they don't tell you who they are. They are Marxists. And we have to tell people and warn people who are unaware of this deceptive ploy. And the perils of Marxism, as our late happy warrior, Andrew Breitbart, warned us so many times of, as this is not something that should be taken lightly, the perils of Marxism. People don't know, but Karl Marx, he was not a happy man. He was miserable. He was hated by his family. And in fact, I might even do a Saturday show. Drop it in the comments section if you would like me to do an entire show on Karl Marx and who he was and why communism sucks. Marxism. And we'll explain the differences too between socialism and communism as well. We'll do that on Saturday. If you want that, drop it in the comments section. But this far left radical, he has gotten elected to New York City, but there are wins, somewhat, not really. There was not, I wouldn't say this is like a huge win, but this major U.S. city, Minneapolis, on Tuesday of last week, and I'm sorry I missed this, but this is huge. He was not elected. He was a Somalian. So let's get to this. It was a mayoral race. We saw Zohran Mamdani on November 4th get elected. He's the mayor-elect, but we did see somewhat of a win, not really, in Minneapolis. Okay, now the mayor's race in Minneapolis featured this terrible candidate. He's a hardcore socialist. There's a difference between he and the other guy, but this guy, during the mostly peaceful George Floyd riots, failed this city, gravely failed the city. His name is Jacob Frey. Okay, and this is a Minneapolis mayoral race. Okay, and he was going up against what I would call a hardcore socialist communist, almost. Omar Fateh. Okay, Fateh, this is complicated. I'm not going to get into all the details here. He won the Democrat convention through support of the same network of groups that sent Zohran Mamdani. Okay, so Zohran Mamdani, like, you know how he won against Andrew Cuomo? That was very similar to here in Minneapolis, where this guy, Fateh Omar, he won over the Jacob Frey guy. I don't like Andrew Cuomo, don't like Jacob Frey, but these radicals, and like Jacob Frey's pretty radical. Andrew Cuomo, pretty radical. Lockdown New York when he was the governor. Crazy mask mandates and vax mandates. It was insane. You had to have a vax passport if you wanted to live in New York. Very extreme, radical, big government. But Zohran and Omar Fateh, these candidates were propped up by a network of groups and pretty much won their Democrat conventions. This is why, Andrew Cuomo, I think, had to run as an independent because he didn't win this Democrat convention because they propped up Zohran Mamdani, these groups. Same thing here. Jacob Frey and and Omar, they were up against each other, but he didn't win the Democrat convention at first. So there's a lot here. So let me pour through this. Okay, so Omar won the Democrat convention through the same groups that sent Zohran Mamdani to the mayor's office and winning the primary ultimately. Now, that was the case until they pulled his endorsement, the Democrats. Okay, so there was a very interesting vote that happened, and there's voter fraud at this convention, I guess. And this ultimately caused the Democrats locally there in Minneapolis to pull the endorsement of Omar Fateh. Okay, so it kind of gets complicated, and I don't want to get too far into the voter fraud thing. All you need to know is Frey had prevailed ultimately at the convention. Like, he had won the convention, Fateh, but then Frey came back and won because of the voter fraud. And once the smoke cleared, due to the voter fraud or whatever that happened at this convention, Frey ultimately got and secured that endorsement. And he prevailed 50-44. And so he lost. Fateh lost the most recent Tuesday election, the mayoral election. Okay. But here's the story I really want to get into today. And this is about Somalian population in Minneapolis. Okay. So Ilhan Omar, they have sent the biggest, fraudster, most American hating person, I think, ever to Congress. And they've sent her there since 2018. Now, she didn't unite, or she did ultimately want Fateh to be elected. Okay, Omar Fateh. But I think that the real story here is what ultimately caused Omar Fateh not to win. What ultimately caused him not to win was this Somalian clan clash. Okay, so this is starting to get really complicated for me because we're dealing with foreign wars on American soil. So let me play this clip, or I want to show you. I think I've got this here. Where is this clip? Yes, this is this clip. Ilhan Omar, and she's endorsing Omar Fateh. Okay, and she wants people to vote for Fateh, but there's a clan within Minneapolis, a Somali clan that didn't want Fateh and she doesn't belong to the same clan as Fateh. It's very complicated. She campaigned for Fateh, and she, in this clip here, tries to appeal to this audience and appeal to Somalian solidarity and tried to get them to put aside their clan differences and vote for Fateh anyway. So this is fascinating stuff. I'll share this and then I'll explain what she says, because it's at one point in this clip she just winds up speaking Somalian or whatever the heck the language is. Let's take a listen.
And ama waxaan u malaynayaa haddee dadka badan oo isku dayay in communitygeena iyo jaaliyadda Soomaaliya inta Minneapolis ku nool inay kala qeybiyaan inay caawatan suurtagelisay oo annagoo dhan aan u soo wada baxnay in hal cod aan ku wada hadalno oo aan dhahno annaga haddii aan Soomaali nahay waan ka soo tagnay in nala kala qeybiyo, waan ka soo tagnay annaga jinsiina isku dagaalno, waxaan waddankaanayt ugu noolnahay Soomaalinimo. qofka laamiga nagu arko wuxuu og yahay inaan Soomaali nahay, ma kala yaqaan hoos qabiiladan ka kala nahay iyo sida isku kala qeybino. marka maanta waa sharaf daro in xaflad qof aan Soomaali ahayn loo suubiyay qabiil looga dhex hadlo. taas waa mid ceeb ah, waana mid aniga qaas ahaan aan uga xumahay ilaan dadka soo qabaabiyay aan kastoo wax ka kasaayaa hadda ay fahmaysaan. marka waxaan leeyahay Soomaalida sayti oo isdhahaaya Ilhaana niyad jibinaysiin ama Cumar niyad jibinaysiin, annaga geesinimaana lagu dhalay, wiligeena waa guulaysanaa.
Okay, that was all Somalian. There were some captions there for you, but I'll go through what she said. Really quick, I want to highlight this. A significant number of Somalians in Minneapolis didn't vote for ethnic Somali mayoral candidate Omar Fateh due to Fateh being a part of the Darude clan rather than the Hayewe. I think I'm saying this right. I don't know. Silly names. Silly clans. Weird. These deep-seated clan wars allowed Mayor Jacob Frey to rally key community leaders from the Hawaii clan to hold off a challenge from Fateh. Okay, so he's the incumbent. He screwed over everybody in Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots. Hate that guy, Jacob Frey. But Fateh is an extremist. Okay, similar to what was going on. I don't think Donald Trump officially endorsed Andrew Cuomo, but Andrew Cuomo had a better chance over the Republican. So he didn't endorse the Republican in New York who was running against Zohran Mamdani because Andrew Cuomo probably had a better chance. But anyway, very similar thing happened in New York as it did in Minneapolis here. Now, Representative Ilmar, she endorsed Fateh, campaigned for Fateh. That was at a campaign stop there, all the Somalians speak. And she is not a part of the Darude clan. She is actually, I think, a part of the Hawaii, from what I understand, clan. They she possibly is going to face a primary challenger, Ilhan Omar, from the Darude clan. So I don't know. This is very fascinating stuff because we're having a foreign war on American soil. Okay. And what she said in her speech, now let's get to the speech and what she said here, because the speech is very telling. She tries to unite the Somali clans. So she's not Darude. She's not of the same clan of the Omar Fateh guy. And she tries to unite these warring Somali clans. We've imported into our country. Yes, that's right. We've imported foreign wars onto American soil through legal immigration and illegal immigration. And this is the danger of not only illegal immigration, but legal immigration if people aren't willing to be American and they just want to be in America. Okay, now what they've done is they've seized political offices and they're starting to primary Ilhan Omar, and there's this warring going on in our political offices here in the United States. And it's like tribal, like clan wars going on in US politics. So Omar's words here, she says, this is not about America, essentially, is what I'm going to summarize her speech. They're about Somalia. Okay, so she kind of says the quiet part out loud is that, hey, our goal is to Somalianize America, and we need to unite in order to do that. It's not about America. She doesn't like America. She wants Somalia to be here. Okay, and she reminds the crowds exactly about who she's wanting to represent. And it's not anybody in this nation, but she wants to represent Somalis and Somalians, and she wants to live in a country where we only live in this country as Somalis. Okay, so that there is no clan wars, and that we have to put that aside for the greater goal, really, of Somalia. Okay, that's kind of how that speech went. So anyone who sees us on the street immediately knows we're Somalis. And that line right there is a confession. She said that quote in her speech that I just played, where she was speaking Somalian or whatever language that was. They don't want to assimilate. They don't want to be Americans. They want to be here in America, but be Somalians in America and make America look more like Somalia. And they don't want to assimilate. They are here to organize. They are here to consolidate power. And they are here to represent Somalia from within the American system. And that's not immigration. Immigration is coming here, assimilating, and wanting to be American and leaving the culture that you had. Okay, that is true immigration. And what we've done here is we've imported tribal politics, foreign allegiance, ideological colonization wrapped up in this language, this fluffy language the left uses, which is community. So Omar here is not celebrating diversity, okay, because she says it's not about clans. She says it's all about us being Somalian. That's not very diverse, right? If you're from the Darude clan or whatever, over the Hiwawe clan, like you would think, being advocate of diversity, she would be all for these various clans. But she's calling for loyalty to a foreign identity, which is Somalia. And there's a greater goal than this infighting between the clans. Okay, so she's doing this on American soil under the banner of an elected office. This is dangerous. So Ilhan Omar, she might be primaried because these clan wars have gotten so intense. Somebody might actually primary her. This rarely works out well. She's an amateur playing ethnic politics, and it rarely works out well, ethnic politics. So according to social media trends, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and her ex-husband, Ahmed Hirsi, emerged as key figures on opposing sides of this political divide. Okay, Ilhan Omar, who openly supported Omar Fateh, was largely backed by members of the Darude clan. So Omar Fateh, member of the Darude clan, and she's not a member of the Darude clan. So she's kind of like a traitor to her clan, right? Now, Ahmed Hirsi, who is her ex-husband, has mobilized a very energetic social media campaign, and he stood with Jacob Frey as a way to, say, screw you, Darude clan. And he drew significant support from the Hiwawe community, which is a different clan. So following the announcement of Frey's victory, jubilant celebrations erupted among the Somali Hawa youth and activists across Facebook, TikTok, and other platforms, where videos and live streams showcase people waving American and Somali flags, chanting victory slogans, congratulating the Ahmed Hirsi camp. Okay. So in contrast, Omar Fateh's supporters expressed deep frustration and disappointment and accused political groups and social media influencers the Ahmed Hersey camp of dividing the community among tribal lines. So, look, folks, there is a Somali clan rivalry going on in 2025 U.S. domestic politics. And honestly, that was not on my bingo card. This is kind of crazy. And you have to understand that this is Minnesota's politics now. You have to immerse yourself sort of into Somali clan structure. And the fact that that's a thing freaks me out. Okay. Now, I want to get to some data, reliable data on the exact number of Somalis in Minneapolis is a little unclear. But I pulled some data, and it's from 2018, and there was about 43 foreign-born Somalis in Minneapolis. 43,000 foreign-born Somalis. And 94,000 spoke Somali, okay, as the first language. Okay. So it's safe to say that both those numbers are probably higher now at this point. Foreign-born Somalis, and once they come here, they're foreign-born, and then they come here either through illegal immigration or legal immigration. They come here and they don't speak the language, and they don't even try to speak the language because they're having children who are United States born, and clearly the 94,000, that's how many people are speaking Somali. So they're not even attempting to speak the language when they're coming here. So it's safe to say that those numbers are probably both much higher from 2018. But from my research, it looks like the Darude and Hawawe clans are one of the most numerous of the dozens of Somali clans in the U.S. Okay, so there's other clans, but these are the two major ones. And it also seems like, and I'm open to correction on this, that the Hawawes are more political than the Darude. Okay. And, this is how one native Somali describes the clan system. And you kind of have to understand the clan system in order to understand domestic politics today in Minneapolis. So this is how one native Somali describes the clan system in Minneapolis. Back to the question of whether people still continue to practice the clan system in the West. In Minnesota, my elder cousins are in clan communities. So there is a clan system, and they are actively practicing in this clan system. In Minnesota, my elder cousins, and this is coming from a Somali, one native Somalian. My cousins are all in clan communities. The clans are very organized. They operate like life insurance. People are divided into small groups. They hold meetings at an elder clan member's home who's trusted and has the best interest of the clan at heart. Okay, this is starting to get really weird, almost like cult-like vibes, right? This person is responsible for informing the clan members of what's happening and then collecting money for the benefit of the clan. Sometimes there's major things happening, like there's a death in the family or funeral expenses that are needed. So there's death in the clan, and then you raise money for that. Other reasons for collecting money can be, the famine, where the collection of the money is, for a longer period of time. I don't know if that's a famine like over in Somalia, but they collect money, these elder clan members, and they meet regularly. Other times, money is collected on a regular basis to support schools, hospitals, and orphan care in the region where their clan is from. So they collect money and send money back to Somalia, when they're going through famines, and they send money back to support the schools, hospitals, and orphan care there in the region that they're from. According to reports, clan rivalry could spill over into the upcoming congressional primary season. Will Ilhan Omar, she might face a primary challenger of a rival clan. Okay, in theory, it would be nice to see a GOP candidate come about. Okay, so we all know that it'll be a primary challenger, and she'll have to deal with that. But I hope that a GOP candidate comes about, and he uses this system, whatever GOP candidate that is, he uses this system and he breaks this Democrat stranglehold on that community. And he uses this infighting strategically. And, this is a big problem. And Ron DeSantis actually points it out on X here, and I'm going to throw up his tweet. He says, how does importing ancient tribal blood feuds from halfway across the world into our country benefit the American people? For many Republicans, mass migration, no matter from where, is good as long as it's legal. Brain dead thinking. Wow. Fantastic tweet from Ron DeSantis. Mass immigration is not great, even if it's legal. Okay. No matter from where. Republicans tend to have, I don't care where you're from, as long as you do it legally. That is that's brain dead thinking, as Ron DeSantis says it. This is really bad. We're having tribal fights on U.S. soil. I like this one. A significant number of Somalians and Minneapolis didn't vote for Omar Fateh because he was part of the Durruti clan rather than the Hawaii. So that's really why he lost. Now, indeed, importing Somalian clans politics into the U.S. it makes very little sense. Now, this has happened before. There's nothing new under the sun. So this happened around the 1900s, early 1900s. Sicilian clans. Okay, we imported a bunch of them. Italian, these Sicilian clans, and it didn't work out great back then either. You got a lot of gang activity and crime. And political corruption happened in the early 1900s with that, when we imported all those Sicilian clans. So you're just inviting crime, political corruption when you do this mass immigration of these various groups from these countries. Okay. I don't know about you, but Somalian clans, there should be no place in the U.S. political system for Somalian clan battles and fights. There's no reason why Somalian clans should have any place in U.S. politics today. This is bizarre. And I'm glad that you guys stuck around. Smash that like button, share it out with your friends. Omar is Somalian first, exactly. Was very clear by her little speech that she gave there. She said, look, we got to put aside our clan differences because we have a goal here, and that is to make America more Somalian. Okay. I think that's essentially what she was saying in her speech, which is frightening. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back again tomorrow, bright and early. Bye-bye. I love you so much.